the trial contained cataclysmic errors that deprived the truth from coming forward. But he is factually and actually innocent. And we know this. How do we know this? Because the evidence that did come in at trial showed it. And I want to say this. David's adoptive daughter is a victim. She's just not a victim of her father. She is a victim of extraordinary childhood trauma, and now she's a victim of this system. And that is tragic. What we do know is that there was testimony from this young woman where she admitted, and not under some harassing, hard cross-examination, but a gentle cross-examination, a very kind of cross-examination, when she was asked the simple question, honey, do you remember, did you even remember this really happening? And she says, no, I do not. And then the state got up and said, oh, but you remember your father doing all these things, all this stuff. And she says, oh yes. What this should tell us is we have a highly suggestible child who will bend over backwards to please whoever is questioning her. And what does that end up with? An unreliable allegation. I don't even like to call them false allegations, because that suggests that there is a child who is maliciously lying out there. What we have is a highly suggestible, eager to please child who, and you don't have to be all that sophisticated, you don't have to be a psychologist to know that this is how wrongful and unreliable allegations get made and how people get wrongly convicted. And make no mistake about it, there was not a shred of corroborating evidence. And on this evidence, he should have been acquitted. And we are hopeful that this judge will recognize the error of her ways and that she will right this wrong. But even if she doesn't, we have a lot of errors to point out that went on in this trial. This judge considered evidence that, I won't even call it evidence. She considered material and documents that were never even admitted into evidence. This is such a significant, a fundamental and structural error. It happens so infrequently. We had to go back to like the 60s to find the last time there was a case that this happened in, okay? It is fundamentally and structurally wrong. Judges can't just go into the back of their chambers and rifle through papers and decide whether they believe and conduct their own investigation. That's not how trials work. You've got to take the evidence as it comes. So that happened in this case, and that was a fundamental error that if she does not correct, I am confident the appellate court will correct. But sadly, while we wait out here for this injustice to be corrected, this miscarriage of justice to be corrected, David Blue waits inside. And we should never, I don't care, I know these allegations, everyone's like, oh, these types of allegations, they just, they make us upset and uncomfortable. Well, you know what? I don't care what the allegations are. Nobody should be wrongfully convicted. Nobody. And it's in these types of cases that we have to stand up even harder and stronger and make sure that there are no miscarriages of justice. Because believe one thing is true. It can happen to David Blue. It can happen to any of us or our loved ones. So I don't know how it works in this courthouse. I'm eager and thankful to be here. I look forward. I've never been in the Williamson County Courthouse. I'm looking forward to litigating here. But I certainly would welcome anyone to come into court and actually hear the evidence. Because I think if anyone was here listening to the evidence, they would scratch their head and go, wait a second, how did he go to prison or jail? How did he get convicted? So with that, I would say, I don't know if anyone has questions.
Been documents that weren't brought into investigation, like actually put in. Can you sort of talk a little bit more about that and like what that was specifically that you're referring to?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I'm still trying to untangle it a little bit. So one of a judge's obligations is to make sure, and the attorneys, it's not just the judge's obligations, but it is an attorney's obligation to make sure that the record is clear, that we understand what evidence was used to convict somebody, what the judge relied on in doing so. And the reason we do that is not only so we have a clean and clear record for an appellate court to look at, but so that the public knows, because it's part of the fabric of our criminal justice system to say any one of us should be able to go to any courthouse in this country, and if we want to know what was the evidence against any person that had their freedom taken away, we know what that was. Well, when I read the record in this case, because I wasn't present for the trial, I noticed that there were exhibits that were admitted, of course, and I could make out, although it wasn't great, but I could make out what was admitted into evidence. But then when the judge came to giving her findings, she started referencing materials that were never admitted into evidence. And I was curious. I said, well, that's weird. What is she referencing? I didn't see this come into evidence. Typically what judges do is they enter impounding orders, which is we impound the evidence. We give it to the clerk's office. They put it as part of the file, the docket, the record, so that anybody can come pull it out and look at it. Well, there's been no impounding order as far as I've seen in this case. I did ask the state to provide it to me. I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's been entered since. But I have not seen the actual list of evidence that was considered. But I do know from looking at the findings that she relied on and referenced documents that were not admitted into evidence. At least the record does not reflect that. And that's a problem, because it is not just unfair, but it denies the defendant, in this case Mr. Blue, the opportunity to challenge that evidence. This is sort of the secret star chamber type of cases that we as the United States democracy tried to get away from. We don't want stuff happening in secret. Bad things happen in secret. When the government's doing bad things in secret, that usually results in miscarriages of justice. So we need to, so today, and it was a long-winded answer, today I'm going to be raising that, and I fully expect that even if we don't prevail today, which I hope we will, but that the court is going to have to specifically identify, what did you actually rely on? When you said this, what were you referencing? So that is a big problem, and that is one that I hope to get to the bottom of today.